Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. We talk about different categories of wellness and seeking balance between them. There's overview info on our website, letsbewelltogether.com.
This is episode 40.
We hope our territorial acknowledgement improves allyship with Indigenous people within a reconciliation process. We're on the Haldeman Tract, located on the traditional territories of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge the presence and traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land.
Welcome to another week of Let's Be Well Together. I'm Julie Wiilson, and I'm here with John. And it's been a little bit since we've been together, but John, what are you thinking about today?
Well, first of all, I think you have a great radio voice, so that's good. Here's what I'm thinking about. We have talked about mental health first aid training from the Mental Health Commission of Canada umpteen times on this podcast. And so this is my great opportunity. Now that I know that you're the person who brought it to my workplace, I want to ask you a little bit about that. Basically, just do a little interview to find out more about what got you interested. And then if someone else wants to bring it to their workplace, what might they do?
Sounds good.
Okay, well, let me start with the start then. So how did you hear about it and what got you interested in it?
So I attended a conference with Dr. David Goldblum, and he talked about mental health first aid. I'd never heard of this term. I'd never heard of it before. And he said that it was very common in Australia, and particularly in the legal community. So Dr. David Goldblum is a psychiatrist. His son is a lawyer as well. And so he was talking to a bunch of lawyers at this conference. So after that conference, and after he had raised that term, I Googled it. And sure enough, I looked into it, and Mental Health Commission of Canada had started these programs, Mental Health First Aid. And at our workplace, we had been talking about different things that we could do on the EDI front. And
EDI is?
Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion front.
Thank you.
And we had some extra funds. So my mission was to go out and find out, what could we do with these extra funds? And one of the proposals was, why don't we focus on mental health? That was adopted. Everybody thought that was a great idea. And I said...
And when was this?
This was to the end of 2016.
I thought so. It was quite a while ago.
Yes. Yeah, the end of 2016. And so it was actually over Christmas holidays, very few people in the office, and I was on a mission to get more information, to find out about this. I looked on the Mental Health Commission of Canada's website. They have a list of trainers, and they have master trainers. So I thought, I'm going to start with the master trainers. Got in contact with Dr. Jennifer Laffiere and said to her, we've got some funds. We'd like to put together a program for our workplace. Given that it was a law firm, a legal environment, we had a little bit of tweaking to do to some of the mental health first aid, the program in general, but Dr. Laffiere was very open to, let's pick scenarios that fit with your workplace. Yes, she has to meet the certain requirements of the mental health first aid program, but she was very open to changing it, using scenarios that fit with our workplace. We ran a pilot, very successful, and now I would say we probably have over 175 individuals have been trained. So it's easy enough for workplaces to go on the commission website. You can look for trainers in your area because there are trainers across Canada.
Just slow you down. The commission website is go on the Mental Health Commission of Canada website.
Correct.
Okay, and look for trainers in your area?
Yes. There will be a list of courses, or you can go directly to trainers like I did. You can set up sessions for your workplace, or you can send individuals to participate in courses that they offer in your various areas. They also now offer virtual mental health first aid training, so it's a lot easier for workplaces where you have offices in different cities or different provinces that you can run these virtual sessions as well. They tend to say about 15 max per course so that you have opportunity for meaningful discussion.
Okay, let me take you back because I want to ask a bit of a comparison question. So you hear something about mental health first aid at a conference, and so then you start up the program at the firm, and now you see what happened later. How does what you initially thought compare to what ended up happening? And secondly, I guess the second side of that is it bigger? Is it better? Is it more different than what you anticipated?
I was very unsure of the reception to something like this. We are used to physical first aid, and we have various committees in our offices and individuals who are trained in physical first aid. I didn't know what the appetite for mental health first aid would be.
So I was asked if I wanted to participate at a certain point. And I think I'm probably, like a lot of lawyers reacted like me, because we're risk adverse, right? Like
Correct.
We don't like to take things on that are going to create risk. So when I first heard about it, I was like, this is scary. Like if somebody tells me there's some technique to talk to someone in a situation where they're having an issue, I'd be worried, like, oh no, I'm going to do it wrong. And so I was nervous about it.
But I think in the end, and just given our numbers now, we're a firm with one of the most, or let's say the highest number of trained mental health first aid providers. There was the appetite for this. And following that, we had individuals reach out to some of their clients, and I had clients calling and asking me, how did you get this started? This is something we need for our workplace. And the risk question did come up, but we're not advertising ourselves as professionals. We're advertising ourselves as someone who, in a time of crisis or someone just needs something to talk about, that we're there for that person until they get professional help. There is no way that we are claiming to be professionals. We're not. You can't be trained as a professional, but it gives you the tools to sit beside a person and just give them what they need in that moment, and until they're willing to reach out for professional help, or you help them reach out for professional help, right?
And what I love about that, because it just, I was operating on false assumptions, and I was operating under the old mentality, which I believe fosters stigma too, which is, I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
Okay, because I can't do something about it. I don't know the answer, so leave me out of it. I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong. I'm afraid, don't talk to me about suicide, because then you'll think about suicide. All these things that we're now hearing in these interviews of so many people on our show are wrong. And we can normalize discussion. It fits in with the whole concept of normalizing discussion, letting people express their true selves and their true emotions with somebody who's listening actively with an empathetic ear.
Exactly. And that's one of the things, I don't know about you, but one of the takeaways that was really stood out in my mind during that, or after the mental health first aid course, was you talked about suicide. And I always thought the same thing. Oh, I can't talk about it. You can't raise it. But I learned through that course that no, you want to talk about it. You want to come right out and say to the person, are you thinking about taking your life? Or are you thinking about suicide or of harming yourself? Like, I did not know that. I was of thinking the same as you, as I better not say anything about this, but it's actually the exact opposite. So there were little things like that in having conversations that we learned.
Another example for me was if somebody, for example, let's say that somebody was having a schizophrenic episode, and I mentioned this on an earlier show, and they said, they're talking about hearing a voice beside them, and I would have thought you would tell them it's okay, it's not actually happening.
Right.
Which is not the correct approach. I mean, the better approach there is to hear them out, understand what they're doing and going through, and let them know that if you were experiencing the same thing, you would be anxious.
Exactly.
You would be upset. Then that's part of the normalizing part of the process.
Exactly. We were left after that course with the term LG that we could take away. And it helps you think about, assessing the situation, listening to the person, which is what we've talked about, validating. You just said it there, that of course you would feel anxious. and then helping them.
Yeah.
Get the
So
supports.
I'm just reading from a list because we're at the end of our segment, but the term algae, which was one of the key things they helped us understand and work through, A is for assess the risk. And that includes, if necessary, asking the person if they're thinking about self-harm or suicide.
Yeah.
That doesn't usually happen, but it's one of the things you need to think about. Listen, we're going to keep talking about this on the show. We've talked on an earlier episode about active listening that's full of non-judgment, empathy, and the rest of it. The G is for give. You're giving information. So, for example, if you have information on how they can get help, or information such as normalizing what they're going through, the point about saying, if I was experiencing that, I would also feel that. The first E is for encourage. You're encouraging the person to see somebody who can help them. And the last E is also encourage, but instead of the context of finding a professional or someone with experience to help them, it's to encourage self-help and other support strategies. So yeah, it was an amazing course, and I appreciate you letting us know a little bit more about it. For anyone who wants to try and bring it into their workplace, go to the website for the Mental Health Commission of Canada. And if you're not in a work site and you're just alone and you want to join in on a training session, you can also do that as well. And it wouldn't be a matter of arranging a group meeting, but it would be a matter of trying to find out where you can get the training.
Exactly.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is in the category of mental wellness. Ardyth Correa is the founder of Ardyth Correia Coaching. She's a teacher with a Master's of Education, a Bachelor's of Education, a Bachelor of Public Relations, and certified in marketing. She's also certified as a health and life coach and as a CIJ Clarity Catalyst coach, which means she's trained in teaching and coaching people on emotional intelligence and mindfulness strategies. Her coaching training led her down a pathway to coach mothers for the most part. First, she helped out exhausted mothers who have autoimmune diseases, as she knows what it's like to have an autoimmune disease, having one herself. She's helped teens and tweens become more confident in who they are and where they wanted to go in life outside school. She's currently helping mothers who want to be more calm in their lives and have children with ADHD, a learning disability, or other neurodiverse conditions. Ardyth has a son who is 8 years old and is gifted in his visual and spatial skills, has hyperactive ADHD, and is on the cusp of a learning disability. One of her top priorities is teaching him and her other son, who is 6 years old, how to read and eat foods that are calming for their brains and bodies. Eating calming food is helpful for her as well, as she has hyperthyroidism. She's a big advocate for mothers by demonstrating how important it is to take some time to focus on what is important to them and not just everyone else, as that can easily take over their lives. So welcome, Ardyth.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure to be here today.
I was talking to you earlier about some of the stuff you do, and maybe we can lead into it with some of the other parts from your intro. It's up to you, but right now you're focused on working with mothers who have children with ADHD. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I've decided to help out moms who are raising not only children who potentially have ADHD or have been diagnosed as ADHD, but also have other neurodiverse conditions. When I first found out that my son is ADHD, I have learned that he is also considered under an umbrella called neurodiversity. And under that umbrella of neurodiversity, there are multiple conditions. An individual can have Tourette's syndrome. They can have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. They can have ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, autism, a learning disability such as dyscalculia, so difficulties with math and numbers, dyslexia, issues with reading and sounding out words, dyspraxia, challenges with coordination and movement. There's other conditions that we can get into later on if you wish. But that just, it really opened my eyes, because then I started recognizing, well, I not only have a child who is struggling with the fact that he is hyperactive ADHD, but I also have a child who has a potential learning disability and is gifted in visual and spatial skills. And so that falls under neurodiversity. And then this journey has just begun. As an academic myself, I just started becoming more of an active researcher. I learned about children who are considered 2E. Have you ever heard of that term?
No, I have not.
So that is twice exceptional children. And that means they're gifted on one side and they have a learning disability on the other side. And they may also be ADHD. And so the strategies that are needed to help them function and learn are so important, yet those strategies would be very different on either side. And so the journey of learning has just continued. And as a teacher, when I'm not coaching John, I'm a substitute teacher. I have been given the opportunity to work with learning support teachers in resource rooms where I actually do see signs that say neurodiversity is welcome here, for example. And it's just opened my eyes to how much more is needed within the education system.
Well, let's focus a little bit on the coaching side of it. And
Sure.
From what you've described, the children who you help have many different situations. And so there's not a one-size-fit-all type answer. Can you tell us what are some of the issues, some of the common issues you see the mothers are facing and some of the common issues that the children you're helping are facing? And then maybe we can talk after we hear that about what are some of the strategies or how you're being able to help them and then what happens later.
Sure. What I have noticed is there are mothers that are struggling with receiving phone calls because their children have done something, and so they're having to leave the school, or maybe they've gone to a camp and it's not working out, and so they're receiving these calls at work, and sometimes they're receiving these calls multiple times during the week, and so they're absolutely exhausted by that. They're feeling stressed. They're at their wits' end. They're questioning their careers. I've chatted with moms that have talked about difficulties deciding should they be working moms outside of the home, or should they be homeschooling their kids and give up their job or their career. There's also moms who are recognizing that even though their children have received this diagnosis, they have not received a diagnosis for themselves, but yet they're questioning if they need to go and have themselves assessed by a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And so that is because they're also noticing that they're struggling with aspects in their life. Moms take on a lot, and a lot of moms joke about how they want to have more than 24 hours in a day to be able to handle all that their family's expectations have been put on them, or society's expectations. There's so much.
So how does coaching help the mom and the child? With that help, do they find it becomes more manageable?
Yes. So what happens is in coaching, I work with people in groups or I work with them individually. And when I work with them individually, that's where I can hone in on exactly what it is that they need, because I'm able to ask them questions, and then that leads to other questions. And as a coach, we talk about action steps, so that they can try these things out that we have talked about could potentially work for them. And then because they're seeing me on a consecutive basis, such as once a week, then we can see how things are going. And because these mothers know that I also have a neurodivergent child, that really brings down that wall where they know that they're not going to be judged, and they know that that I have potentially gone through some of the same stressful situations that they're going through. And so that helps them to have more clarity. I ask them questions to help them decide what direction they want to go in specifically for their lifestyles. Does that make sense?
It does. And obviously we don't have enough time to get into actual practices like what people do, but
Right.
What about the outcomes? So let's say there was a mom who was thinking, like, I just don't know if I can keep my job, keep this up. I don't know if I can have a career. Maybe I need to homeschool. Have you seen situations where once they reach out for help, once they get help, they say, okay, yes, I can make this work. I can have a career. I can keep going.
Not particularly that situation. No, I can't speak specifically on that. But if a mother were to come to me with that question, with trying to figure out what direction, I have been trained to be able to ask her certain questions to help her figure that out. I've had a lot of people that have come to me and they thought that I was just going to tell them what to do. And that's not how it works. I help them figure out what it is that they want to do.
So with the moms that you've worked with, have you seen changes where they start to figure out a path forward that makes things more manageable?
Oh my goodness, yes. And it's just been surprising at times. It's been exhilarating at times because not only have I learned that I was helping out these moms, but I was also helping out the rest of their family, because it's a trickle down effect. I've received testimonials from the children within the family of the mothers that I've helped. And that just shows me that I'm not just helping out the mothers, I'm also helping out the people that are close to the mother in her life.
Well, I wish we had more time because we could try and talk a little bit about how things go with kids. But it sounds like then that if there's a mother out there who's listening to this and they have a child with some type of neurodivergent condition and they're feeling at their wit's end, that there is help out there, that if they can try and find some resources and look, they might be able to find some help, and there's a way forward and a path for them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's crazy how fast time flies in these things, and I want to make sure that I don't miss something that you wanted to communicate while you have a chance to be here. Was there anything else you wanted to communicate about these situations?
I think I just want mothers to know that they're not alone, and to never be embarrassed or ashamed of what they're going through. There's always going to be a mother out there that's going to understand. And these days, because there are so many online groups for support, they are great. However, when given the opportunity, have the individual support, that's where you're not just given advice from somebody else's viewpoint. You're actually receiving like a mind spa-like experience, whereas a mother, you're receiving what it is that you need specifically for your lifestyle. Personally, as a woman, I can receive all this advice. It could be unsolicited advice. It could be advice that I have actually asked for. But when someone is trained to be able to ask questions to help unlock what it is that I have going on in my head, to help me figure out the direction that I want to go in, or to figure out what the next step is that I want to take to be the best mom I can be, and to be the best woman I want to be in this society. It takes a lot. It takes a lot off someone's shoulders. And so that's what I really want mothers to know, that they're not alone and that there's always support out there if they really want it.
I always worry about saying things that come across sexist or wrong, and maybe this will, but someday maybe there will be changes in the world and there'll be a lot less differences in between the roles of men and women. But right now, from what I see, so this is my personal opinion, mothers are just so important in families. Mothers do so much work. They're often the core of the family in so many ways. And it's really interesting what you said, that if a mother who is feeling overwhelmed and stressed can start to feel better, get a better handle on things, I can imagine how that has an impact on the entire family, all the other kids, the husband, the vibe in the household. So it's a really great news story if there's help available for them. I don't know if you've heard any of our podcasts, but I always ask each guest the same question at the end of an interview. It's in the context where there's many areas of wellness in each of our lives that are important to each of us. And it could be different for you than for me, but they're important areas. But we obviously don't have enough time in the day to always be on top of all of our areas of wellness. So we do a little mini wellness check-in. So here's the question. Are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if yes, can you think of even one thing that you can do to foster wellness in that area?
Well, I know that I have not exercised today. So right after this interview, I am going for a walk with my husband. And I know that that's going to make a big difference to how I feel, because every time that I exercise, I feel a lot calmer, and then I sleep better. And I'm just a much more pleasant wife to be around, and mother. And I just feel better as a human overall. So.
Well, it's a good message to hear, because we have said time and again on our show that that's so important. And we keep telling people that going for the walk is just an amazing way to get some exercise. A lot of people think that you have to do high intensity interval type work or spin classes, but going for a walk is a beautiful way to get your frame of mind a good one. So enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
A quick note for new listeners who don't know the approach to wellness and balance in my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. Please consider reading it. Our pre-show and first 10 episodes also provide overview points. It's a 3-step approach. First, I identified categories of wellness that are important to me. I expanded my thinking and identified my 8 areas. Second, I'm figuring out activities that foster wellness in each area. Third, I do a wellness check-in from time to time, especially if I'm feeling off. It reminds me what I'm missing, but also how rich my life is. Join us for the ride as I explore this approach in the podcast and co-hosts explore their perspectives.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of The Adventures of the Starving Artist. This week has featured a bizarre and wide range of music, and it's been a wild ride trying to stay sharp in all these styles. That is not a musical pun, or at least not intentionally. Between lessons, the own music that I'm writing, or my own music, and practice for gigs coming up, I've bounced between 80s music, contemporary stuff, country music. I'm doing blue suede shoes, like the Elvis recording with a guitar student. I'm doing a jazz standard, How High the Moon, with a piano student. With another piano student, I'm doing Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu, which is a serious undertaking. Actually, that's the one I kind of want to ramble about today. The student who's asked to learn it is named George, and he's certainly capable, but it's going to be a project. And without boring you to death with all the details, what makes this piece so difficult is that each hand is playing in a different feel. So one hand is counting 16th notes, and the other is counting sextuplets. It's kind of like the thing where you pat your head and rub your tummy simultaneously. Try that real quick. With one hand, pat your head, and now with the other hand at the same time, rub your tummy. Did you screw up? Not so bad? So imagine doing that, but instead of one head and one tummy, you've got 44 of each, and you have to choose the correct ones, which are switching all the time in fractions of a second. Think you could do it? I think you probably could, but you might need to practice, right? That's the boat I'm in. So I've got my work cut out for me this week. It's going to be quite a project, but I'm fully confident in myself and of course, Mr. George getting this tune down. Go listen to it. Little Chopin Never Hurt Anyone. You'll hear what I'm talking about. That's all for me. Thanks for listening. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We love our listeners and thanks for joining us. Please help spread the word about Let's Be Well Together podcast. Follow us and rate us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram at lets.be.well.together and let your friends know about us.
Move that body like we're meant to do. Okay, so here's another healthy eating for Move That Body. Kinda. Yeah, so
Eventually.
We had John's brother and his wife here for a week. They were living with us, and she is from Thailand. And she promised me that she would make spring rolls with me. So I was really excited because, man, I love spring rolls.
Having said that, what's in the back of my mind is, yeah, that's a great idea because it's cool to learn how to do it, but I don't think of it as healthy food. I don't know why. I just assume, a lot of times what we call Chinese food is full of MSG and salt and all kinds of stuff. And I just assumed you were going to make something that wasn't very healthy.
Right. So she got the ingredients and like carrots and onions and cabbage, 2 types of cabbage.
Garlic.
Am I missing anything?
Let's just say there's that. But if there was anything else, it's healthy stuff like vegetables and stuff.
So then you saute the vegetables and then she takes out these wraps and they're very, very thin wraps and they're made out of beans.
Yeah, there's specialized wraps for spring rolls made from some kind of bean product.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because I assumed that the wraps were a starch, made out of wheat or something. So they're made out of beans. So I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I came in and you're like, John, this is awesome. We're making spring rolls and it's all healthy stuff.
And it was vegetarian. And next time I think I'll try with some pork. But anyway, so we're making all this and we're making a huge amount and now it's time to wrap them. Okay, we're good.
And then we were patting each other on the back for good 20 minutes about how this is a life changer. We now know how healthy we can make these healthy spring rolls and life is wonderful.
Right. So we're bagging them up. We're putting like 20 in a package and we put them in the freezer and we're going to give everyone some. And then the night comes and we are going to cook them for an appetizer for dinner. So some people came over and so we're all excited. Ning gets out the frying pans.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, how do we cook these? And so she gets up like a regular frying pan and she gets a bottle of vegetable oil, not even olive oil.
Yeah, she cheap oil.
Yeah, not because, I have this whole issue about using vegetable oil instead of olive oil. I don't like doing that. I'm like, okay, she's going to put some in and she turns the bottle over and it's like glug,
gone.
glug, 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 glug. And now there's this like pool of oil in the frying pan.
And here we are frying up our lovely, lovely.
So then Sheila and I start laughing and stopped patting each other on the back.
They were really, really good. So
amazing.
So that was great. But John and I were kind of like, I wonder if there is a better way to do this. Can we bake them? Can we do this? Can we do that? And then we remembered that Elise has an air fryer.
Yes.
And she was talking about how wonderful this air fryer is and how she makes French fries and does all this stuff. And
because I didn't think that it would work in the oven.
I agree with you. I don't think it would work in the oven either. You need that frying kind of feeling. So what did we do?
We desperately wanted to find a way to get this healthy food and make it work.
Make this healthy.
But maybe this long shot will pay off.
So we go to Canadian Tire.
No, we didn't at first.
No, what did we do?
We drove up to see Elise and Steven.
Okay.
And we brought some with us.
Okay.
And said, hey guys, you have an air fryer.
Yeah, can you?
Now, we didn't drive all the way to Owen Sound, which is about 2.5 hours from where we are, just to try an air fryer. We were going up there for a different reason.
Right.
But you may as well kill 2 birds with one stone.
And we wanted to give them some anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was totally selfless of us.
So we get up there and of course they make them and they were fabulous. Amazing. So then we go to Canadian Tire, get an air fryer. And of course, as all of you know, we're very particular. I mean, me in particular about my counter. So I have to find room for this air fryer before I can buy it.
Our cupboards are mostly full, but we have a rule that nothing can be...
Nothing.
Our cupboards are full, but we can't put any on the counter. So the only way we can buy something is to take something out.
Yes.
So by good luck, we had... A long time ago, we were into cappuccino and somebody as a present bought us a cappuccino maker. But we've more recently found a way to do it a lot easier, which is just using a milk frother, which is simple. Anyway, so sure enough, guess what came out of the cupboard?
The cappuccino maker's gone.
Guess what goes in the cupboard?
Air fryer in.
And we're good to go.
Yeah.
And actually, we found other good uses for the air fryer.
We sure did. Yeah. So the French fries, fabulous. Yeah. There's a lot of things that, we're using that air fryer.
So our spring roll story is it went from unhealthy to, wow, it's really actually pretty healthy, to that is not very healthy.
To we're going to try.
Back to, with an air fryer, pretty healthy.
Awesome.
There's a thought. Popped up while running. My mind often works with things like connections and analogies. And excuse my voice today. This is a series of pop-ups I'm recording this morning when I have a bit of a stuffy nose. C'est la vie. Anyway, I was thinking of some great people that I know, some people who kind of brighten up the room, brighten up the world. Somehow then I started thinking about the theory of utilitarianism, which is a philosophical ethical theory. In overview, it's a bit of a challenging theory because if you actually work it through and you put yourself in different situations, then you have to make choices that are pretty uncomfortable at times. But essentially what the doctrine says in overview is when you're trying to decide what to do, which is kind of what ethics is about, what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do, then you're supposed to choose the action that has the greatest plus for the most people. So it's almost like a mathematical equation where you figure out, well, if I do action A, how many people will benefit by how much? And if I do action B, and then you calculate the good things that are going to come out of it and you choose the one that has the best outcome. And there's challenges because what's the good thing? Is it pleasure? So is it hedonistic? So whatever brings most people the most pleasure? Is it something else that you're trying to increase? Anyway, forget about whether or not utilitarianism is the right theory for us to make our moral decisions. What occurred to me is there is definitely an analogy when you think of people you know, and are they making the world a better place? Just in terms of, you can see it, you can feel it. When they come into a room, do they brighten up the room? And do they try and make the people around them feel better? And I do know people like that. And they're amazing. So, I don't know, I just got this good feeling today when I was out for a run thinking, forget about utilitarianism, forget about thinking about the people who kind of make the world a worse place. But I like to tip my cap and I like to appreciate the people I know in my life who I can see are making the world a better place.
It's me. Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin. Okay, so I know that you've talked about this very little, but it's just such a funny story that I think we should talk about it, John.
You're talking about, because you told me before you turned it on.
Yeah.
The Run Kitchener Project.
Run Kitchener Project. So John decided that he was going to run all the streets in Kitchener, which is hilarious because just to figure out the borders of Kitchener is impossible. Like, I don't even know how you did it.
Well, I guess I'll give a couple seconds on the maps. Yeah, I'm kind of that personality, maybe a little Sheldon-esque at times from Big Bang Theory, possibly. Once I decided to do it, which is a story I think I've mentioned, I had to figure out what to do. So the first thing I did was I looked on the internet and I found a place that sold big wall maps. Mm-hmm. It's a combination of Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge.
Right.
Kitchener, Waterloo are these two big cities that grew together. And you can't tell when you're in Kitchener and Waterloo.
No, and the border isn't like straight across or anything. It's quite jagged and up north and south and all over the place.
That was a whole exercise just finding the boundaries of the city, but I did eventually find it. And then I found a really cool map from the City of Kitchener Planning Department that broke the city up into a bunch of zones.
Right, that I've never even heard of.
And then I broke it into more zones. But even then, for each zone, then I went onto Google. Mm-hmm. And I used Google to break that down, and that map I would use. And then I couldn't run that whole thing in one day.
No, of course not.
So I would have to pick a little section of each zone.
Yeah.
And initially I would try and remember them in my head.
Right.
But I would go out and I'd be running around in circles and I'm like, I don't know what street I went on.
Yeah. And you're going up and down and over and the crescents and hilarious. And then of course, normally when you run, you just literally go out the door and run. But because you decided to do this, you would have to drive like sometimes 20 minutes away.
Not at first. At first, I would always start from the house.
Okay.
And go to whatever zone it was and run around. Mm-hmm. Probably people in their houses going, what is that guy doing?
What a weirdo.
Because if you want to try and run a neighborhood, if you think about it, you're going to have to backtrack a little bit. Because,
for sure.
So I'm sure people saw me going back and forth in front of their house.
Because working for Canada Post, I can kind of relate that, you're trying to do the best route, but you're definitely backtracking often.
And then eventually I figured out, well, I actually had to carry a paper map. Uh-huh. So I would carry a little section of the map and I'd be holding it in my hand and running and figuring out where to turn. But then I'm getting older.
Yeah, so you can see.
So I couldn't read the map. So then I had to start using these magic markers to make it to outline the street and write in big names, the street name.
Right.
Big letters, the street names.
Yep.
The map was a pretty funny whole side of it and how you even figure out how to do it.
Yes. And then, of course, every time you go out there, you had to go no matter what, because you had this project that you had to do that had to get done, and you'd go out in hats and mitts and scarves, like covering every inch of your skin, and then you'd come back literally looking like the abominable snowman.
A couple times, yeah. So I was doing it in winter. When I did it in winter, one time I do specifically remember that they have those, like, I don't know what you call them, but they're stretchy things, and you can wear it as a neck warmer, you can wear it as a hat.
Right. Like
the snuggler thing, whatever it's called. And I cut holes in it so I could use for eye holes and a mouth hole.
Right.
And I needed that because otherwise I would have frostbite that
day. For sure.
But meanwhile, then in the summer, I was running. It was so hot. Yeah. I was actually running around without a shirt on at some points, which is something I don't like doing.
Right.
But it was so hot. So it was the gamut of really hot to really cold.
Right. And then, of course,
because this took place over the period of about 3 or 4 years.
Right. 3 or 4 years. And then there was some areas that he did, but then he realized when he was looking at them that he missed some streets. And how often did that happen?
Pretty regularly. And it was frustrating. And so remember I said I always started at home initially, but then it got to the point where you're right. Even if I was going to run 8 kilometers, I couldn't run 8 kilometers to that spot and then run 8 kilometers and then run 8 kilometers home. And that would be 24 kilometers.
Right.
So eventually I got to the point where I was driving to my runs all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes wondered what I was doing.
Yeah. You ran streets in areas that weren't even actually developed yet. Just because they're future streets coming or something.
Well, okay, but in some cases I couldn't because what they would show up on my map is almost like grayed out. Mm-hmm. But if I could get access to it, I would run it. But in some cases I was running around for an hour and all I would see was basements kind of in place, but with no walls yet.
Yes.
Fire hydrants and no houses.
Right. But now I wonder if, now that it's a few years later, if you have a desire to go into these areas and run streets that are
I
now.
do.
You do?
Yeah, I want to see what the neighborhoods look like.
Yeah, that's true. That's very interesting.
But a couple of the funny things that happened. So one of them was, I was really surprised actually. You can be running along a street and you know how on a crescent or you turn right and then you go up like 10 houses and there's a circle?
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, there's a bunch of circles that's just a circle. Like as soon as you turn the corner, it's a circle.
Okay.
So people must be thinking, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
He's running up the street and then he just has to run our circle.
Yeah.
So
right up the street, run this circle and go the next street.
You mentioned missing a street. So if I was 8 or 10 kilometers from home and I missed a street, I don't want to run all the way back there to do a 200-meter street. So the one I do mention in the book is I was driving home from Toronto, from a business meeting with a suit on.
And like shoes.
Dress shoes, suit, the whole works.
Yeah.
And I realized, I have to pass by this one neighborhood on my way home, and I missed a street there.
Right.
So I drove over, and it was a kind of a crescent off the main street.
I so wish we had this like on video or something.
And I still wasn't sure if I was going to do it. So I pulled over. I'm like, just do it. So I get out of the car, I take my jacket off, I get out of the car.
Like, did you have a tie on too?
I think I took it off.
Okay.
But I had like a dress shirt. And
dress pants.
Dress shoes.
Dress shoes.
And then I just got out of the car and I ran. It was in a circle. So I ran around this circle about 250 meters, got back in the car and left. And I'm pretty sure I saw someone in the window being like, what was that?
Yeah, for sure. Too funny.
Yeah, there were so many funny things.
You decided to finish. You wanted to finish on a kind of a hurrah. So you saved a street that, we knew some people that lived on it. And so it was New Year's Eve and we were having this New Year's Eve walk along. So we were going from one house to the next and the next.
Yeah, so it was every different times of the year. In this case, it was New Year's Eve. it's a walkabout, a family walkabout.
Mm-hmm.
So you visit people's houses. And
Yeah,
it just
it
so
was
happened that there was 3 houses and I actually saved that route
for
my last run, but I didn't know when I was going to do it. So when this came up, it was a perfect opportunity.
Right. So we're at the second house and here you are in your spandex.
Well, not yet. So we were at one person's house
And this is winter.
we're partying and we're having a few drinks.
Yep.
Then we get to the second house and the plan was for me to run from the second house to the third house.
Right.
So I got changed about 10, 15 minutes before everybody was going to walk down there, including it was winter. So I had is it spandex?
It's spandex.
They're running tights, okay? It's really cool.
Definitely leggings.
Manly.
It's really cool.
But it looked
spandex.
It looked like leggings. And I distinctly remember, and there was a whole bunch of people I didn't know at the party.
Yeah, because it was New Year's Eve. So.
And I distinctly remember talking to a couple of people, and I'm pretty sure they're like, yeah, it's okay for you to wear leggings to a party.
New Year's Eve party.
We're good with this.
So we're already at the third house and you timed it. So you told me what time you were going to arrive and I wanted to have a little bit of a party. So I bought these sparklers and I was telling everyone that they had to go outside. Everyone, you got to come outside now, light the sparklers. But most of the people had no idea what was going on because first of all, we've been drinking for a while. And second of all, they don't even know you. So everybody's coming out and we're all with the sparklers and there you are running down the street and we're like, woo.
Oh, but hey, you got to remember, I came around the corner and there was about 150 meters to the house. First of all, I'm like, what is going on? Like I don't even know half these people. Why are there so many people out front? And then someone says, no, you're too early. Go back. Do that again. And so imagine, I'm at the final end of the thousands of kilometers of running in 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, go back.
Go back.
So I went back and turned the corner again. And by this time, everybody had their sparklers lit and everyone celebrated.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, when I got inside, I'm sure a few people were like, what was it even about?
Yeah.
And so I felt like a bit of an idiot because they're like, why is this guy so special? He ran for like 2 minutes. Why are we celebrating this guy who can run from 1 kilometer away to this house?
But luckily, you brought your map to finish the last line on it. So if anyone was really interested, you told them. So
yeah. Well, I had a lot of fun and it was a really cool thing. And one thing you just mentioned there too, there were a lot of days where I did not feel like going out. But because I had this project, I went out.
Gave you something to do for sure.
So I can't help but think that it had a big piece of the puzzle to getting me more and more and more into running.
Yeah.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way. We made it to sign-off time, and it is John, Sheila, Sammy, and Lexi. Her dog's here too. We don't know if Lexi's going to bark or say hi.
Yeah, no? You never know.
That's so cute.
So I'm just going to talk briefly about one thing, which is I went to Toronto. I used to work there, and I worked at a different place, and I haven't seen the guys I worked with at that other place since COVID started. So we were able to have a lunch together. So it was fantastic to be able to connect with these guys and see how they're doing after, what is it now, 3 years we're going on?
3 years of COVID or?
I guess it's 2 years of COVID. It just feels like 3 years.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just been a busy work week and I'm getting some runs in. I'm starting to get a little more active after I can't use the excuse of waiting because of the marathon any longer. And according to Sheila especially, she keeps looking at me going, hey, when are you going to get out of here and do something? So
well, he keeps saying that he's going to do something and then he doesn't do it.
That's true. Okay. Really, it's a kind of a light week for me. Just keeping my head down, keeping working, and keeping all the balls in the air. How about you, Sammy?
I had a lot of fun this weekend. I was a little bit sick at the end of last week into the beginning of the weekend, which wasn't great. I feel like I had the same cold that everybody had.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of just like getting over that, but I did get to go to the Bridgerton experience.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Also in Toronto. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You got to dress up. You like walk in and then they do like the whole performance kind of thing. So they have like a Daphne and a,
you dress yourself up or do you?
Yeah, you dress yourself up. So I was actually lucky because my friend Melissa, who was also supposed to come, she ended up getting sick. So she couldn't come. So I just got to wear her dress. So I've been so busy. I didn't have a chance to get anything. So I lucked out.
Oh, nice.
And was able to just borrow hers. But yeah, so you dress yourself. And then there was like a really beautiful performance. They had like the ribbons coming down. So they did some like aerial stuff and beautiful like gowns. And yeah, so it was really nice. And then after, so that was like the first hour. And then the second hour was kind of like your photo op. So then they like open the wall and then there's like all these little like installations. So where you go and line up and get your photos. So the first part was definitely my favorite part. The second part was just kind of like, you have to do it because you're like, I'm here. I got to take the photos. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, your photos look beautiful. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because
what do you got going on, Sheila?
Well, we have a big weekend coming up because we have our condo starting November 1st. So we're going to be going to the condo actually. And all my brothers and sisters are coming up for the weekend.
Up in Collingwood.
Up in Collingwood. So had to get organized for that because we're hosting the whole family for one night. That's a big deal. So getting organized for that and had a lovely Halloween. So that was fun. I dressed up for work today.
She had a really scary costume.
Yeah. It was like a clown, like a scary clown.
Yeah.
So and it was great. It was great because I scared quite a few people actually. Because they answer the door and it's like or I come around the corner. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. And all the trick or treaters today, and the weather held up, so that was really good. And that's all that's going on with me.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. And Lexi, maybe next time you can pipe in and say something to us. You're so quiet.
Yeah, she's so quiet.
And
unless you come to the door, then she's loud.
Oh, yeah? So we'll have to get somebody to knock on the door next time we do sign off.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the meantime, we'll see everybody next week.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.